My friends, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of Diner Talks with James. I'm James, and I am super pumped to be here with you all, kicking it. How you doing today, my friends? It's starting to get a little crispy outside, and I'm a big man, so I appreciate it because your boy looks good in layers. You know what I'm talking about? Hope you're out here seeing some beautiful leaves if you live by a place where the leaves change. And if you don't, must be nice. Go sip a Mai Tai on the beach and rub it in our faces on Instagram. Either way, friends, I'm excited that you are here with us right now. I have a guest today that I have known for a number of years, and I'm really excited to have him on the show. He's one of these people that has believed in me since before I think I believed in myself. And at times that's been uncomfortable. And at times it's been really humbling. And most of the times, though, it's been really beautiful. And so I'm just grateful because when I got started in my speaking career, I was able to speak at Humber College in Toronto, Ontario. And this man and I kicked it off. And not just because we're both Italian, all right? But watch your mouth anyway. But let me tell you about him. Ercole Perrone. Ooh, I'm going to say it one more time because it's so fun. Ercole Perrone, okay, is an accomplished social impact executive with expertise in governance and strategic management. He's the CEO of Ignite at Humber College and over in Guelph as well. He's a solutions-focused thinker with an excellent foresight and judgment to directly strategize, to direct strategy and affect meaningful change, leading to improved business performance, organizational effectiveness, and social impact. He's a huge equity, diversity, and inclusion advocate and ally, a natural leader, a relationship builder, and a collaborator. He is a great man with a great laugh and a great presence. I'm excited for you to meet my man, Ercole Perrone.
Hey, how's it going, James?
What's up, my guy?
Coming to you from the north, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, we the north up there.
That's right.
How things going in Toronto?
Things are good. Things are good. Starting to get, I heard your intro, starting to get a little crisp out here too, but the leaves are changing and it's always nice.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Now, this is called Diner Talks with James, as you know, my friend. And so I always like to start off the episodes by learning what is a favorite late night guilty pleasure food. What's your move late at night, Ercole? Is there something? Obviously you're in the land of poutine, which is an outrageous product. But I'm wondering where do you go late at night if you're able to? What do you eat?
I am a French toast connoisseur, man.
Woo!
Brioche bread, challah bread, you name it. If it's French toast, I'm showing up. And if I'm feeling particularly hungry, might even go for like a side order of corned beef hash.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, man.
And get the corned beef hash well done, right? I need a little crisp on that.
That's right. Can't be wet. Can't be soggy.
Now. Come on. What are we doing out here?
That's right.
French toast is incredible. I talk a lot about pancakes because I have a very particular way that I eat pancakes, but French toast is an outrageous product. In New York, it's pretty much only on the challah bread and that thick style. But on a great brioche, I'm here for it. I also recently had someone cut a cinnamon bun in half and then dip it in French toast batter and put it on a griddle. And I thought about marrying that person, but I was already married. So.
Worth giving it a try. You can't say no to that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
What about you? Are you rocking a grilled cheese sandwich with bacon today, or are you doing a stack of pancakes?
Woo! That's a tough call. It's always an in the moment decision. Sometimes I'll have the server make the decision for me and be like, "What do I look like today? Do I look like a guy who's holding a grilled cheese, or do I look like a guy who's cutting him a stack of pancakes?"
Yeah.
And anything to make them laugh, because sometimes they'll give me a free chocolate milk. So
there you go. Chocolate milk. I gotta go with coffee, man. I gotta get that diner coffee.
Your coffee, yeah. Now, here's the thing. As someone with such deep Italian roots, coffee is something that I would assume that you are particular about, or have you dropped your standards from your across the pond family heritage?
No, I'm definitely a coffee drinker. What's the health thing to do? Drink 8 liters of water a day. Yeah. I took out water and I added coffee. Yeah. Latte,
still water in there, right?
Espresso, just regular good old fashioned drip. It's all good. If it's coffee, I like it.
My wife Tina, her favorite dessert is an affogato. Right, the
Okay.
espresso on top of the vanilla ice
That's right.
cream.
Ice cream. Yeah.
Yeah. That's her. That's how she gets coffee at night.
I'm not bougie, so I don't go there.
Oh, he's not. All right. Well, I love it. I can't wait to call Tina bougie. I'm gonna tell her you said that. She's gonna crack up. She'll probably be like, "Yeah, you're right."
I have been known to add a little Baileys to the coffee on a rough night.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you've earned it. Yeah. Well, I'm super stoked to be talking to you, brother. You are a first generation Canadian. Your family is from Italy. Both of your parents from Italy. Everybody, are you 100% Italian?
Yeah, both. Well, I say I'm 100% Canadian because I was born in Canada.
Okay.
Right. So I'm Canadian all the way. My parents were born in Italy. And so I obviously grew up in that culture, and it oozes in and out of me, but I'm Canadian. I'm a proud Canadian.
Yeah. That's beautiful. With parents from Italy in the household growing up, did they speak English, or had they become fluent in English and or French? Right, in Ontario, I know you can kind of get away with both.
Yeah, both my parents spoke English fluently. My dad pretty straightforward, just like the two of us. No hint of a major accent. My mom still had a bit of an accent. They spoke Italian to each other. On and off Italian to me and my sister, but primarily English.
Okay.
Neither of my grandparents spoke a lick of English, so we had to make do. We had to fight for attention with nonna and nonno by speaking as good Italian as we could.
Yeah. That's awesome. What does being Italian mean to you? We're going to come back to the fact that you're 100% Canadian. Don't worry, I'm not trying to ignore that. But that was an important sentence that you shared. But what is it about being Italian that you love? Well, there are parts of the heritage that you're super proud of. Is there an attitude? Is there what is it about being Italian that you're like, heck yeah, I'm Italian. Look at my name. What do you think I am?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the food, right? Like you can't knock the emphasis on cuisine when it comes to Italian culture and Italian heritage. You know what? Like it's a fair question. I'm not trying to dodge it, but in the absence of experiencing another culture the same way I've experienced the Italian culture, I can't tell you what I like about being Italian, sure. Being Italian Canadian more than any other, right? Like I think, they're, big family values, but I don't think that those are unique to the Italian culture. Mm-hmm. There's a sense of responsibility and hard work, but I don't think that that's unique to being Italian. So I'll stick with the food. You can't go wrong there. The language sounds is obviously amazing.
Yes. I agree.
When I was growing up, I gotta tell you, I couldn't get enough of the mobster movies, and I thought that looked good. That sounded like a lifestyle that would suit me. And then you start to realize just what the implications of that lifestyle are, and you move away from it.
Yep, sure.
For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, that's right.
Yeah,
watch The Godfather, and you know what I'm talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. Kiss the finger, kiss the ring. Yeah. Hide the gun, take the cannoli. Mm-hmm. So it's that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I watched a show recently where I'm a big car guy, and so there hasn't been a moment in my life that I can remember that I didn't have photos of Italian cars on my wall. And so getting to go to Italy and actually touring the factories in nice. and the beautiful Bologna region, it's really it was incredible to do it. And also the show that I watched recently where they were riding around in a Lamborghini in Rome and there were people taking their cameras out and taking photos. And the guy the guy who was riding, he said, these people are not taking photos of me because I'm driving an outlandish car. These people are taking photos of me because they're proud of this, this is, they're just proud of their heritage, proud that this is a product that came. Look at what we created.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. And that we mentality is really beautiful in Italian culture. And I appreciated that.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. My wife is just a quick deviation. My wife was born in Argentina.
Okay.
And then immigrated to Canada. And when we have conversations about culture and what have you, she expresses this way better than I will. But Italy, being such a small country, size wise, has produced its culture to an extent that it's all over the world.
Yes.
So that pride that you're talking about is connected to that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, Italy has done a great job. I think there's a lot of other, especially here in the United States, I think a lot of other cultures look to the way Italy has figured out a way to do it, to be like, man, how could we be the next Italian food or the next whatever, right? Yeah. It's fascinating. And there's also, we can probably get into the deep social justice side of how that worked and how Italy was able to do that, maybe compared to some other cultures, for sure. But that's not to say that Italians have always had it easy on this side of the pond either. So for sure. But you are you're 100% Canadian. Canada's what you know, and I know you are. I know you're a Raptors fan. Are you a Leafs fan as well? You go all the sports.
I'm okay with hockey. It's definitely all about the Raptors.
Yeah. You and Drake sitting courtside. I've seen right. So yeah, dapping each other up before the game. Yeah. I love it. That's awesome. So, with the work that you do today and working with empowering university students and whatnot, that's not something that anybody is born saying, you know what I want to do one day, right? Like none of us who got into work with college and university students knew that we wanted to do that when we were younger. So I want you to take me back. Take me back to the younger days when, your dad was talking to you, your mom was talking to you with a slight Italian accent. What does young Ercole want to be? What are you excited about being when you were younger?
I gotta say, James, like I was all over the map, right? I was big into baseball when I was a kid. Yeah. Thought about being a baseball player. Actually had a tryout with the Toronto Blue Jays at one stage in my early teens.
Very cool.
Didn't even know what this meant, but I thought being an engineer sounded like something that I'd want to do. Mm-hmm. Couldn't tell you exactly at the time what an engineer did. And I found out there's a lot of math involved and I, politely bowed out. Yeah. I liked movies. And so I was into the idea of being an actor, like you name it. I didn't have a goal. I didn't have a plan in place. I actually started, university with an undeclared major. I had no real sense of what that adult life was supposed to look like. I just knew that, my parents and my grandparents worked hard to give me these opportunities. And so I had to go to post-secondary. Like it wasn't an option. The only problem is I didn't know what I wanted to be. And it was while I was at school that I started to get a little bit of an interest in politics. On campus politics, obviously, for those of you that understand campus life in the student affairs world, like on campus politics is big, and it just sort of evolved, right? I gotta be honest. My my luck is good, and what I mean by that is I feel very fortunate to be in the role that I have. To your point, it was like it's not by design. I kind of got lucky and. Series of events got me to where I am today, and I take that as I take that with a degree of responsibility to do for others, because to an extent I don't know how much I earned all of this along the way as much as I was just at the right place at the right time sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is also not your fault, right? But yeah, you were there. Yeah. And I love that. I love the idea that you're trying to give it to others, because obviously we can't make somebody else lucky. But sometimes we can give people opportunities that then they'll later be on podcast 20 years later and be like, yeah, I got lucky because some guy saw this in me and here we go. Right. I definitely would consider myself lucky for that reason in getting into when I got into higher ed in the beginning. Now, because I had a supervisor that when I was flailing and had a very mediocre GPA with my marine biology degree and realized I don't want to do marine biology the rest of my life, my supervisor, Michelle, pulled me aside, and another guy named Larry both pulled me aside and said, well, why don't you go into this field at least for a little bit? You know, you're not going to hurt anything. It doesn't close any doors. If anything, it opens some more because you'll be working at a university. So you could, if you decide what you want to do, if it's not this, you can get a master's degree for free and go off in the direction you want to, but you're not closing any doors. Maybe you're delaying some, but you don't know what you want to do anyway. So why don't you do something you know you're good at?
It's amazing to me how many people I meet, students included, that don't even know that the roles that we had or occupy are even a thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you mean you can do that for a living?
Yeah, you get paid?
You get paid to do this? Yeah.
Did you think this is a volunteer position? You think I would deal with you for free?
That's right.
And we would sometimes. Some of them are worth it. But, but yeah, I completely agree. So I'm wondering, you know, back in your childhood, kind of being somewhat directionless, but I mean, maybe it doesn't sound like you were directionless. It sounds like you had intermingling passions and or a start-stop mentality, you know, however you would put it. But I'm wondering, for your family, was that something that they were totally fine with, right? Was your family just a total, like, just follow your heart, my son, right? Or were they kind of like, all right, what's this kid doing? He's wasting time here. We got, you know, we didn't come over here for nothing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the latter. It was definitely the latter. I don't know how common of an immigrant experience this is, but it at the very least was mine, where you had a bit of a push and pull between sort of the old way and the new way, or the old world and the new world, right? Like, you know, traditions were embedded in everything that we did. There were expectations on how you were to be. There were ideas of what a good life for me and, you know, my family were supposed to look like. But they were all definitely rooted in those, you know, traditional Italian values, right? That my parents and grandparents brought over. Meanwhile, you're here in you know, Western democracy, a different culture, different opportunities, right? And you're trying to find your place, right? Like, my grandfather was great with his hands. I'm not, right? That's you know, there were these experiences. I don't know how purposeful they were, but there were these experiences whereby, you know, as a kid, you know, being impressionable, am I supposed to follow in that footstep, and am I supposed to learn a skilled trade? Am I, you know, is that an honorable profession, or do they want me to be a professional? Do they want me to be a doctor? Do they want me to be a lawyer? I had no interest in being either one of those things, right? And so, you know, to the extent that, you know, my parents did, they provided direction, they provided options, but it was a bit of you got to figure this out. You know, you're not going to live here forever.
Let me tell you one thing. Yep.
You know, you got to figure this out. There was, you know, go become a teacher. You're going to get a pension. You'll work there forever. And you'll have job security, and that's big, you know, for you know, for an immigrant family. Security, But there was, you know, now the term is used, but back then I'm not sure how often that term was used. But this idea of being entrepreneurial, right, of wanting to do things that haven't been done before, that are different, or you know, be your own boss. And that was looked upon with, you know, a degree of skepticism, right? Like, that's not safe. That's too risky. You think about your future wife. I'm 15. Like, what are you asking me to think about? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I guess it was definitely not, you know, follow your dreams, my son. But it definitely, you know, alternatively, it wasn't, you know, you got to do this and this is how you're going to do it. Find that happy medium. And I had to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I bet that was fascinating. And I would also assume each of your parents probably felt that differently, or showed that differently, taught you that differently. What's your relationship like with your folks? Are you closer with your dad, with your mom, or, you know, like, you know, growing up, was there one that you could go to if you wanted to get a yes, and the other one was going to shoot you down? So it's like, oh, if I want to do this, I gotta ask dad. Or
So in case they ever watch or listen, let me start off by saying I love my parents. I'll repeat it for emphasis. I love my parents. Openness is not something that I would say is a hallmark of our family, and I'll extend it to our broader family, right? Communication is something that I think, generally speaking, we all struggle with. Like,
Yeah.
we know when we're mad at each other, right? That's the easy part.
Yeah.
But there, I got to be honest, like there weren't a lot of, heart-to-heart conversations, and son, let me sit you down and talk to you about what life is going to be like. So, my parents were present. They showed their love for me and my sister, not so much in terms of the words or the hugs,
Right.
but in being providers. And I think that
Acts of
not
service, right? Like Gary
yeah
Chapman's 5 love languages kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, not to diminish them as parents in any way, shape, or form,
Of course.
but they I'm going to assume that they felt that they had a job to do, and that was to set the table up for me and my future family, in such a way that maybe it was a little bit on the rigid side or on the cold side, but they didn't. It was too important for them not to fail, and being soft, and maybe me growing up being soft or overly sensitive was something that I think they worried about, me being eaten up by society, because they were new and they didn't necessarily, they had I would say a healthy mistrust for Canadian institutions, right? It's not how we do it. This is how they do it. And for you to be accepted and for you to be successful, let's just keep our heads down and just do good work. And I think that made them act as parents in a different way than I know definitely I am with my kids, right?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, even though it's obviously completely different than my experience. But I've heard other immigrants speak about it in that way, and I think of course there has to be some you got to be coming in with some skepticism. Obviously, you wouldn't be here if there wasn't hope involved.
Right.
But now that you're here, it's kind of like, well, all right, but like, is somebody else going to ruin this for me? Is someone else how are you going to affect my family? How are you going to, right? Like, are you going to love us? Are you going to, right? Are you going to believe in us? Are you going to give us, opportunities, even if we are X, Y, or Z, right? Like,
I think too much to lose, right? Like my mom left her mother, her 2 brothers and sisters to come here.
Yeah.
And so, she couldn't risk all that, not being worth a successful life for me and my sister. And if that meant being, tough and rigid and having high expectations of what it was like to grow up, then I think they made that calculation that was important. And it's one of those things that, you might not thank me now, but you thank me later. Is those proverbial lessons that you learn as an adult when you look back at your parents, you'd be like, okay, I may not have liked it, but I understand where they were going with this. I would have done it a little different, but I get I get why it was what it was. You know what I mean?
I see you. Maybe a little finesse, maybe, but I love that. And that's the kind of statement that you can only say with age and wisdom, right?
Agreed.
Knowing what you know now, right?
Yeah,
in the moment, I'm sure you were like, "Why, Mom, Dad?" Right? I mean, I hopefully didn't talk to him like I did, but still, but yeah, like in the moment, you don't understand it, right? It's like you'll understand when you're older, kid, kind of thing. Which is the most frustrating thing to understand or hear. But yet now that we're at this age, you're like, man, crap, they were right.
That's right. That's right. I better pick up the phone and say thank you.
I would have never got you. I would if you tried to explain to me what I know now, I would have never understood. Right. So yeah. Any
of
awesome.
that resonate with you or not so much? Because from what I remember, your parents were born in the U.S.
Both born in the U.S. I believe my mom is 3rd generation Irish American. I think her grandparents' parents and my great grandparents, I believe, came here from Ireland on her side, and then similar for my father's side from Italy. from like the Potenza region of Italy is where they came from.
Nice.
And so, yeah, so I think, and also I'm the third kid. I'm the baby. They had me like 9 years after the middle brother. And there was some part of it that I think they were just like, I don't know, we got other things to do with our life at this point. So you'd figure yours out. Right. And that's not to say them. I mean, my parents were, I definitely, based on what I've been told about the way that they handled my brothers and the way they handled me, particularly my oldest brother, right? I had the easy streak. And I like to tell them it's because I'm a flawless individual.
That's
and I'm grateful for everything that was given to me. So, I mean, come on. Naturally, that wasn't actually the case, but still. But I think there was some of it where it's like they trusted me because they realized the other two didn't do a lot of damage and figured it out. And at some point in time, you also realize it's out of your control. But also, I think I was a good kid, right? I didn't, not to say that any of this would make someone a bad kid, but I think it makes it easier, right? I didn't drink, I didn't party, I wasn't doing drugs. I was a theater nerd, right? Like there wasn't much that was going on. Like I wanted to stay out late so we could make up scenes with friends, right? Like, I mean, like we wasn't anything crazy.
Right.
And so, yeah, my parents very much were, go where you want. At the same time, they could tell that there were things that I was interested in. And so, I wanted to do marine biology. And they knew that I had a passion because whenever I went to the library, I would take out books on fish and things like that. Whenever I brought home drawings from school, there were whales and hammerhead sharks, right?
Nice.
And so, my parents cultivated that. And like we watched a lot of Discovery Channel, a lot of Jacques Cousteau, a lot of all that kind of stuff. My dad also knew that I was funny. And knew that I loved the humorous roles that I was getting in theater. And he said, well, I want you to learn more about the history of comedy. And so,
That's
Friday nights, we're watching Abbott and Costello. We're watching the Marx Brothers. We're watching, Sid Caesar. We're watching like a lot of the old school and Three Stooges, of course, the Muppets, right? And he's like, I want you to watch some of this and watch Rodney Dangerfield. I was like, maybe I want to do comedy. I'll tell you. Right. And so, yeah, so there was some of that, but for the most part, it was, kind of see where you go.
Yeah, but that's amazing. Like clearly you got, and I'm friends of mine who grew up in the same way that I did. We like to say that sometimes we didn't get the push. You know what I mean? And it sounds like your parents invested in that. Like they gave you the push. They took an interest in what you were interested in, and provided you opportunities to explore that in a safe way. And clearly it's worked. So hats off to Mama and Papa Robo on that.
I think they knew I was kind of like a cat, right? We're going to figure it out. I'll probably land on my feet. May not look pretty on the fall, but we'll stick the landing, right? I think that's also, let's be honest, man. That's also privilege, right? Like, they didn't necessarily have reason to worry more than any other parent of a privileged, background has to worry, right? We lived in a very safe town. We lived in. We grew up with more than enough. Like I said, I wasn't a bad kid, and yeah, I think there was some of it where it's just they didn't have to worry, right? They didn't have to give up a lot to have me, or anything like that. And so I think there was some of that was coming from. There wasn't necessarily this chip on their shoulder. Whereas my brothers, my parents were in a very different financial situation when my brothers were born. They're 9 and 11 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And so, I know that I was afforded way more opportunities than my brothers were. And if I didn't know, my brothers would constantly remind me. So now I know. But, but there's definitely, there's some privilege in there as well in the way that I grew up that enabled my parents to maybe have a little bit more trust or a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, no, I can see that, and the fact that you mentioned that you have three boys, mm-hmm. That connects with me in the sense that I recognize that as a boy, I was afforded a little bit more latitude, right? There are certain mistakes that I could make that I don't think would have been applicable to my sister or my female cousins, as an example, right? Like as the guy, there's a little bit of that, hey, he's gonna do what he's gonna do, right or wrong. At the time, but that was a bit of the, I guess that was a bit of the impression that was given, right? Like there's a little bit more latitude for you because you're a boy, whether, and I think luckily I didn't take any wrong turns with that space.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's great to hear. And I'm sure there are times where, I can list away a bunch of times where I put my foot in my mouth in that space. And I know you could probably rattle off some as well, but fortunately nothing too egregious that we can't do what we would love to do now.
That's right.
We can, now they're important stories that we share with others of, and whatnot. Which is incredible, because that's the work that you get to do right now as someone who gets to work with students. And you watch your students step in shit all day long. But that's the beauty of higher education, is that in some ways it's a leadership residency. It's a life residency, right? Yep. Where you have this amazing team of staff that is there to help you, serve you, and guide you. But at the same time, they're also there to take their hands off, right? I remember whenever I was interviewing for jobs in higher ed, I always used to say, I was like, I think my role is kind of like the bumpers in bumper bowling, right? Where it's like, it's my job to make sure you don't get too crazy or don't get to this or to that, right? Like, but at the same time, it's not my job to make sure you get a strike every single time, right? Like, if you just get one pin down, then let's talk about it, right? How do we, how can we get more pins down next time? But I'm not going to let you drop into a pit of despair, or I'm going to try my hardest not to. And that's the life that you chose as well, or occupation, I would say, that you chose. And I'm wondering, what was it about working with university students that made you, I don't know, that kind of even apply for the job initially way back when you started working at Humber? And where are you today with your relationship with working with university students?
I like that lead in, because the way you talked about the bumper cars. So I work with both college and university students, and for our American friends, there's a bit of a distinction up here in Canada. College students generally are in post-secondary education for 2 years, maybe 3, but progressively they're adding that fourth year, like an undergrad, and then obviously university students are definitely 4 years with us. And so with that, you're in a constant change, right? You're never dealing with the same type of personality or student over the course of a year, and so it always has a way of staying fresh, right? The issues are always the same, right? Students trying to balance their studies, their time with their friends and family, trying to learn either a skill or a discipline to get a job. Paying for housing is expensive, traveling to school is expensive, time, money, stress, always on the student's mind. And generally speaking, that's what holds the student back from being successful as an academic, being. But working with those students every year and trying to solve those problems in creative and unique ways, it's tough to get bored, right? Like I'm super grateful for the experience that I've had here at Ignite. We've done a lot of cool things and cutting edge things that I think have whether they realize it or not, really set students up to be successful even when they leave. But that piece about coaching and mentoring is it's undescribable how that feeling you get when you make a connection to a student, and then you start to spend more time with them, or they seek you out for advice and you're like, you want to know what I think about that? Like that's an awesome feeling, to feel like someone who you just met or recently met already sees you as someone that they can confide in and seek advice for. We don't have the benefit of time to build trust in a lot of these relationships. I'm not sure if you felt the same way when you were in those settings, but
Sure.
You only got them for a short period of time, right? Especially if they're a designated student leader, where they're like a president or a board of director, and those are the ones that I deal with the most. They have 1 year, 2 year at max in these roles, and you gotta cut through the bullshit and get to the heart of what matters to them, and ensure that fits with what matters to the broader student population, because it can't just matter to you and your 5 friends. It's got to matter to the 33,000 students that represent us, or that we represent, I should say. And so you got to cut through, that you don't have the benefit of time to, I'll take you out for a coffee, see
Right.
if I like you, if I do like you, maybe we'll go to the movies. Like, no, we don't got that time. We got a week, 2 weeks max to figure out if we're going to jive. And if we're going to jive, then we're going to do some cool things. And if we're not, then we're going to spend a year trying to overcome our differences. And that's going to come at the expense of the students that we serve. And so I walk into all these scenarios and all these relationships, I'm going to trust that you have good intentions. I'm going to trust that what you want to accomplish isn't to sort of define like your own legacy, but it's going to have a big impact on the rest of the student body. And you are going to have to trust me that I'm going to steer you in a direction that's going to make you the most successful in the limited amount of time that you have.
Yeah.
You might hear no from me, but that no is not because I'm afraid of the work. That no is not because I don't believe in you, or I don't think that you can do this. My no is probably going to be accompanied with but, right? No, but why don't we think about that solution differently, or the way you framed that problem might not be exactly how that other student or those other group of students see it. So let's take a step back and rethink it. It's tough to get bored with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially with a constantly cycling group of people. It's you're constantly learning somebody new, and also the world is changing. Right?
Oh yeah,
there's a lot going on where
for sure.
You're kept on your toes for sure.
No doubt about it.
Ercole, I also love the position that you said. That where it's like the way that we say no, you're going to hear no, right?
Yeah.
But the way that we say no to each other matters. And it's not that we're saying no to someone's brain. We're just saying no to that particular idea.
That's
but
right.
The way that we have that conversation matters a lot, right? If someone comes to us and we're like, how about, then they're like, how about this? And we're like, no, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Have you met the people around here? We tried it last year. It failed. You did this.
Right? That right there is the worst one. We've tried it before and it didn't work.
Doesn't work.
Never say that. Never say that.
Yes, exactly. So instead, the way that we say no matters, because I think a pet peeve of pretty much every human being that I've ever come across with is that no one likes to be made to feel like they're stupid. Right. And when you say no to someone that way, it makes them feel stupid. That builds resentment, that crushes trust. And right, it absolutely derails any attempt at rapport. But that's why I love the way that you were talking about it, is that, you're going to hear no from me, but that no isn't because of X, Y, or Z. It's for these other reasons. And so because of that, I love the way that your brain's working. Let us have it keep working that direction. Right. And that was your first idea. I can't wait to hear your second idea. Right. Like that's the thing, as opposed to sometimes you say no to somebody in such a harsh way, you don't get any more of their ideas.
Yeah.
You pop the balloon. So I think that was really powerful how you shared that.
No, I appreciate that. Like I tons of examples of student leaders that have come with, ideas or initiatives that they wanted to take on that, maybe they can see it at the end, but they didn't even know, like the struggle is then how to bridge that gap. Like what are the steps in place? And that's when you roll up your sleeves and you say, okay, your idea is good. Let me help you chart that path and give you the freedom to do it in your own way, right? Like you got talent. Let's give you some runway on working this out the way you want, knowing that you talked about, like safety pads. I'll use another analogy, which is like a safety net. Like if you fail, it's not going to hurt, right? Because I'll be here, right? And guess what? Along the way, it's kind of good if you encounter some failures because you're going to learn from them, right? If in my role as a CEO, I knock out every barrier you're going to face, and this is an easy ride from you to point A to point Z, and you don't experience a little bit of obstacles or hardship, then I did you wrong. I didn't do you a service. I didn't do you any favors. But if I allow you to make mistakes in a safe environment where you're going to learn from it, and also recognize that when you went right, you should have went left. But you're not worse off for it. But now you have the knowledge of that. Then I feel better about you reaching that goal or even reaching it 80% of what you thought rather than 100%, but you coasted, right?
Yep.
Because you didn't learn anything along the ride.
Yeah.
It's not going to serve you after.
Completely agree. And you are someone who is also a parent. Yes.
Yes, sir.
You have 2 kids, right?
Three.
3. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm a great friend.
That's all right.
I only care about 2 of your kids.
That's
so,
right. I want to ask which ones.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, but this is sometimes a difference between parenting versus coaching, mentoring, and things like that, where, especially when kids are young, but there's value to the word no. And there's safety in the word no a lot of times, but it's fascinating to think about as I'm entering parenthood now, right? And we're 10 months in. And so I'm by no means an expert, but I'm wondering, for you, when you think about the role that you have with your students, as you just described, compared to the role of who you are as a father, how would you talk about the difference there?
Well, as you were leading into that question, I wasn't like the first thing that came into my mind was a similarity, not a difference.
Great, start there.
And that would be empathy, right? Understanding where my daughter or my son or my youngest daughter are in that moment when they're coming to you, either asking for something, asking to do something, or wanting to know something, right? Is really no different than how you would apply that very same empathetic lens to a student leader who's maybe overcoming a little bit of anxiety about asking somebody for help in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I would say, like, I guess the first thing that came to mind is it wasn't a difference as much as it was similarity in terms of that empathetic idea of recognizing where they are in that moment and being there for them the way they want you to be there for them. And I think, as someone who gets offered help or gives help a lot, there's a difference between helping somebody the way they want you to help them and helping somebody the way you think they need to be helped. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And so, thinking about the differences now, I guess it's an approach. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be more patient and loving with my kids than I would, a college, university student. Mm-hmm. But I think the principles are generally the same, James. Like, just being respectful for where they are and their mindset, and again, trying to come at it from a place of how am I going to help this person learn from this situation, whether it's my kid or whether it's a student, and grow from it. I guess that's the coach in us, right? And I think that applies to you as well, and that's the mentoring piece of it. I guess there's, if anything, the difference is that if you mess up, it's going to hurt more, and when it's your own than it's if it's someone who's a student, right?
Yeah. 100%. I'm glad that you brought empathy up, because that's such a powerful tool. And sometimes it's not everybody's first gut move, right? The first gut move isn't empathy. Maybe sometimes the first gut move is fix it or devil's advocate, right, or but sometimes it is empathy, right? And knowing what your normal first move is important. And that's why I just wrote down the quote that you said. There's a difference between helping someone the way they want to be helped versus helping them the way you think they need to be helped. Right. That's so brilliantly put. So I like that outlook, and it makes sense. It's funny sometimes going back to one thing that you said, sometimes I hold people who are closer to me, not sometimes, always, I hold people who are closer to me to higher standards than I hold people that aren't. And because of that, sometimes I'm less patient with them, where I wish I would be more patient. Right. Like sometimes I wonder if, back when I was working on a day-to-day basis on a college campus, there were times where I had a partner at the time who literally told me, I wish you would give me the patience that you gave your students some days. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Damn.
Yeah, I know.
But it was so true. It was
Yeah.
so true. I needed
Yeah.
to hear it. It sucked to hear. And yeah, but it was 100% the truth.
Yeah, you made reference to going into fix it mode, and
Yeah.
I could definitely say that earlier on in my career, I definitely was. I'm going to get this solution for you, right?
Mhm.
And that, with time, you recognize is wrong, right? Like, not, again, going back to what I said earlier. Well, you're not doing them any favors in that way, and
Right.
so sitting with that discomfort, I think, is important. Being human about it and saying to someone who's obviously seeing you as someone to support them and advise them and be there for them in that, kind of wisdom type manner, that if you just come across and shoot them an answer of just go do this, right, you're kind of setting the stage for them to think, well, I can't operate that like that, and so you're kind of holding them back twice almost, right?
Mhm.
But if you can sit with them and say, listen, I don't know the answer to this either, but I think the two of us are smart enough to figure it out. Let's talk about it,
Mhm.
right? Or better
Yes.
yet, I'm the wrong person. This is super hard for
Yeah.
anybody to do, but I'm the wrong person to help you with this. Why don't you go talk to so-and-so? She's got this. She'll know exactly how to guide you along this path. She's better at it
Mhm.
than me. Like,
Yeah.
talk about learning in a moment like that, saying to somebody, I just don't know, and I'm actually not the best person to help you. I hope would come with that individual feeling a little bit less about having to know everything or be good at everything, right? When
Mhm.
someone in a leadership position can say, you know what, someone else is going to be better at this than me.
Yeah. Yeah. That relatability is powerful, right? When we see ourselves in someone else, we believe that we can. And sometimes in that moment of relatability, we're doing just that. We're telling them that, like, hey, you don't need to know everything right now. Right now, where
Right.
you are is okay. Right now, who you are is enough, and we're all figuring it out.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
20 years, 30, 25 years, you're senior, still trying to figure it out. Right.
right.
Yeah. We're on team. But if we're on team, I don't know yet.
That's right. I think that's a powerful thing for a leader to say, right?
100%.
I don't know, right?
Yes.
Leaders who listen, but at the same time can be honest with the members of their team to say, you know what, I don't know, but we'll figure it out together. I think gain the trust of their team members a little bit quicker and stronger, and I guess gain their respect in that regard. That he's not willing to make it up just to save face.
Yes.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
And you're not helping anybody in the moment when you do that
Yeah,
at all.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was cool to hear you say a few moments ago that, in the beginning, I used to do this a lot, and now I kind
mm-hmm.
of do that a little bit more, right? That growing process of learning. In the beginning, I was 100% Mr. Fix It, and it's taken me a while to not be that.
Yeah,
Learning your own talents and strengths is something that is critical, because it allows us to take pressure off of ourselves for being everything for everyone. It's so not only is it the wrong way to do it, as we were just talking about, right? Like, mentors don't know everything. As a matter of fact, it's great when they say they don't know what's something. But also, you do a fair amount of coaching and consulting, and oftentimes very generously. And and so, but still, um, as a coach or consultant, in order to be the best coach or consultant, you really need to know what you can offer somebody.
yeah,
Right? These are my strengths and these are my talents. Now, in the beginning, whenever you're in that place, I know when I first started being a life coach, I literally had clients across the board. And I was like, yeah, I can help you with anything, right? I mean, I didn't know about it. And not that I could help you, but I was like, it's my job to just ask you questions so that you come up with your own answers. I
right,
can ask anybody questions and have them come. But it turns out there were certain people that I was like, I don't know the right questions to ask you because I don't know enough about X. And
right,
so, fortunately, I was charging nothing or very little then. So it's not like I was raking these people over the coals for the situation. But still, there's part of me that's like, okay, I need to really hone in on what am I excited to help people with? Where are my skills and my talents? Which is super important to do, but it also sometimes is scary to do because are you closing yourself off to potential clients?
Yeah.
Which is nerve-wracking, right? Especially when you're just getting started. And so I'm wondering for you, when it comes to some of the coaching and some of the consulting and also some of the work you do as an executive, but how did you learn what skills and what talents you have in a way that you could provide them to a potential client with clarity, right? I can help you with X, Y, and Z. These other things, I'm actually, as you mentioned before, I'm actually not going to be your best person. You should go to so-and-so for that.
Right.
How did you kind of hone some of those skills and actually be able to name them?
Yeah, that has been tough, and I think to an extent remains tough because I have a difficult relationship with compliments, right? So just the idea of saying out loud, "I'm good at this," already comes, off a little bit weird with me. But to address your point directly,
I'll let you out of this one.
To address your point directly, governance, which is something that I really enjoy, and I make reference to myself as being a governance nerd. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of it's not the sexiest part of work, right? The idea of structure and systems thinking, not a lot of people get super excited about talking about or engaging in those types of conversations,
right?
But for one reason or another, I just got hooked to this idea of governance and how that interaction at a board level, and the work that happens at a board level to sort of set strategy and then articulate that to a CEO or to a management team, and then work with them to set that up, was always something that for one reason or another I just enjoyed doing, and found others asking me about, right? Like, why do you do it that way, and how do you do it that way? You've taken something that's quite traditional, and you've put a little bit of a twist on that, how and why. And I think that then merged into this strategy piece of linking opportunities, ideas, and people in a way that maybe others weren't. And if I do allow myself that one compliment or pat on the back, is that I do think I can size up a situation, I think, a little bit differently or quicker than others. It's like I can see around the corner sometimes, you know what I mean? And presumably dots that should not be connected, I enjoy the challenge of connecting them when the end result is the improved life of somebody else, especially James, if it's youth. I'll show up and put in the work when it comes to helping youth advance in their careers and their life or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the way you put that. I think that it is, it's hard because when you are very generous, it's weird to think about the ideas of putting limitations on your generosity. But I guess what we're talking about is not that. It's actually saying like, hey, I am a tool in front of you, and here's how this tool is best used.
Right.
I mean, could a hammer fix most problems? Probably, but not all of them, right?
Yeah.
Right. But the fact of the matter is, like, here's what tool I am in your belt to help you out with X, Y, and Z, right? Like we're going to crush it with some governance. We're going to talk about structure. We're going to talk about some of these things that a lot of people, as you mentioned, and I agree with, don't find sexy, but are very important. It's the grease that keeps the engine moving. And that's the part of the work that I'm not good at. It's one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I wasn't good at that side of stuff, right? And I was like, I don't know who Roberts and why he came up with all these rules are and stuff like that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he and I would have hung out in high school. But at the same time, it matters, right? Because there has to be a system of organization, because it does create efficiency. And so they need people like you and I in these places to make sure that there's that balance. But it's amazing that you've learned your talents and know what makes you happen, and also like the way you started smiling when you talked about it, right? Like, it's not a subject that people get giddy about and start smiling about. But you're like, I freaking love this weird shit, right?
Yeah, I think for me, James, is like governance articulates who gets to decide what and when. And if you think about like big complex organizations, right? You know, who gets to make these decisions under what circumstance? How are they held accountable? Like all some pretty fundamental and I think to an extent obvious things.
Mm-hmm.
That's governance. It's just not acknowledged as such, right?
Yeah.
Policies and the relationship that the board has with the CEO and the latitude that the CEO may or may not be given and then how that translates into how she provides her management team time and space to leverage their talents to accomplish goals. All of that is governance, whether you realize it or not.
Right.
Organizational design, structure,
whether you're naming it or not.
yeah. And I guess
Yeah.
I've come to that journey where I can put that name on it, but at the end of the day, the work is everybody's kind of doing the work, maybe not really recognizing that it's under that umbrella of governance.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. And, I think it's cool also because one of your passion areas is EDI work, right? Equity, diversity, and inclusion work. And there is a powerful role in governance and who gets to talk and when they get to talk and how they use their time and whatnot. There's a role in, what are we doing to move the needle in some of these places? Because sometimes without structure, people are just talking, right? We're not getting anywhere. We're not who's taking responsibility, who's whatever, right? And also who's allotting when who can speak and et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that's where policy changes happen and we're actually affected. And yes, we need to affect how we talk, change the way that we talk one-on-one to individuals. But at the same time, we also need to do the bigger work as well, because some of these archaic policies and some of these archaic ways of thinking need to be written out of some of these laws or rewritten to include and whatnot. And so EDI work is something that you are very outspoken about and is at the forefront of a lot of the conversations and the way you think about the work that you do. And so I'm wondering, where does that stem from for you, right? You and I both being straight white males who live comfortable lives, right? Where does that stem from for you? Does that come from being the child of immigrants? Did some of it start there, or is it something that like maybe you didn't even think about it when you were younger as much as that way, and now all of a sudden it's come into your life a different, like, I'm just curious where your passion for it stemmed from.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you that it's been with me throughout, right, from childhood to now. But the truth is it hasn't. I would venture to say that growing up, I had racist thoughts. I had homophobic thoughts because growing up the way I did and how I did, there wasn't that in tuneness to the feelings of others in that sense and the understanding of just being a good human or humanity, right? It's not that it was blatant or anything like that, but it was those microaggressions that, whether at the time I realized them or not, were being experienced by my classmates and by my friends and what have you. And it just, it didn't register with me because, to your point, I had the privilege and it was all lost on me. Fast forward a number of years and being fortunate enough to work in the environment that I do, you get exposed to great ideas and new ways of thinking. And you meet wonderful people who, over a cup of coffee and maybe some French toast, explain to you what their journey to the exact same spot that you're at, how different it was for them because they're Black or because they identify as being from the LGBTQ plus community. And, that either is going to have one of two effects on you, right? You either shrug your shoulders and you'll be like, well, that's not me. You made it. So obviously it's not bad, right? Horrible approach to think about it. Or to your point, you'd be like, I got to get to work. I have a greater responsibility here, right? Like, I think I said this to you earlier. Like, to an extent, I'm not sure how much I earned what I have and what I got to. And, I said luck, but a lot of it could have been just privilege, right? Looking the way I do. And that sense of responsibility is there to improve, right? Improve as a human being, myself, recognizing that others who have it hard don't have it hard because they lack something. It's just because of the way others perceive them. And that's a horrible thing. That's a horrible thing for me to allow happen, or to just sit back and let happen. So, not saying it's easy. It's certainly hard to be a part of, these big conversations, but I want to be in these conversations, not just from a sense of responsibility, but again, just I think I'm a good human being. Good human beings stand up for each other, and whether that's being an active anti-racist or finding other ways to fight oppression, I look for those opportunities, and I take it on as a good member of the community. I think should.
Yeah. And also, you have the opportunity to kind of be the neck that turns the head of some of your students when it comes to this, right? Like, I mean, do you ever see the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yeah.
So there's the point where the mom has said that the wife in the family is the neck and the man is the head, and sometimes it's the woman's job to turn the head. Now, there's some stuff we can unpack in that as well in this conversation, but still, let's not touch on it. Stick with me hang on with me to the point of this,
I'm with you.
Which is that, sometimes as coaches, as mentors, as directors, as executives, it's having the patience to not just tell somebody the thing, but ask them the question so that they can see it for themselves and come to the answers themselves and be like, oh, shoot, this really does matter. Or, oh, shoot, there really is an incongruency in the way people are treated. Or, oh, shoot, right? Like, and that's the longer route in EDI work, but it is by far also the longest impacting route as well, for people to be able to see some of that on their own. And that's a cool way that you combine both of something that you are passionate about and something that you're very good at, is the way that you have these conversations or try to be in the conversations with people about these matters.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And to your point, like some of the work you do on your own, and some of the work, you get lucky and you have the benefit of others who, turn your neck and say, have you thought about it that way? Or can you see it from this point of view? And we've been talking a lot about coaching and mentoring, and, I've benefited from that too, right? 100% benefited from having coaches and mentors, I guess exposed me to books, exposed me to trainings, being in the post-secondary environment. You are, overwhelmed with the amount of, workshops and trainings and such that you can participate in that really push the envelope on your own conscious and or unconscious biases. And then again, it ultimately boils down to that critical decision. Are you just going to shrug your shoulders and move on, or are you going to say, I got something to do about it? And I guess I've decided to do something about it.
Yes. Yeah, I think I love it. I think the two ways that you highlighted that we learn, either whether it's from a mentor or we learn it on our own. I'll throw one other one there. Is also sometimes we learn by stepping in the shit, right?
Yeah.
And we say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and intent versus impact. We learn really quickly that there is a difference between those two, and all three of those ways of learning are valid, and we get to where we get to by a combination of all three of those. Last question that I have for you, brother. Last question I have for you is this. As someone who works with university and college students, one thing I've noticed is that a number, I'll say 90% of the schools that I've spoken to this year, at some point in time on my call ahead of time with them, they have said, and just so you know, we recently had a suicide on campus. Mental health is at a critical status right now for all of the right reasons, but for a whole bunch of wrong reasons, and societal pressures and social media, and I don't knock all that kind of stuff because I'm very much a part of it, and some of it rewards me, but I'm wondering, are you also noticing that with your students? Is mental health up in Ontario something that you all are having conversations about? And I know it's a big question to end on, but I'd just be curious to see, what are some ways that you're trying to have conversations around it that you think maybe some people listening today could be like, oh, I could talk to somebody, or I could talk to myself about it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's actually a great way to end, because I think the thing that you and I have in common is that investment that we put into youth, in hopes that they can reach that full potential that they have, and that means they are their whole selves, if you know what I mean. And the mental health piece is a big component of it. Those conversations, we've been having them for years. The pandemic and COVID, definitely highlighted that. Shout out to all students who made their way through their studies during this period of time. Like, talk about resilience. It's crazy to see what they went through and how they persevered, and that's a testament to them as individuals. And I think they need to hear it, right? They need to hear that they are enough. They need to hear that that it's okay to not be okay. And when you're not okay, there's a ton of people who want to help you. Some of them are going to help you with a hug. Some of them are going to help you by sitting down and having a conversation about what the root causes are. But ultimately, everybody wants you to be happy and succeed. And there are a lot of different ways that, the resources that are on campus throughout Canada, and I'm sure the US, they're there. They're there for students to take advantage of. Social connection is, I think, the kind of missing piece of this puzzle. Like you talked about social media and what have you. And obviously in a pandemic where you're, told to stay home and, not connect with others, that has a, and it certainly did have a big toll on youth. But, nothing beats, sitting across from somebody at a diner and shooting the shit and talking about life and being vulnerable. And for those of us that are in these positions of either, I'll put in air quotes, like power or what have you, demonstrating vulnerability is a way to help others, in particular in this case, youth, feel good about the fact that they're experiencing things in such a way that means that they're not alone, and that there are others who are doing it or feeling it too. And that, again, it's okay not to be okay all the time. And that, mental health is no different than physical health. It just presents itself differently. And so the same way you would treat, a sore shoulder or a banged up knee, you should treat your mind, and you should seek help. And, there's power in that. Own that. There's nothing, stigma is a big thing, but we got to crush that stigma.
You're damn right. We got to crush that stigma. And it truly is. I think we've come a long way. I think in some ways that's how social media has helped, because people are actually talking about it. And I think it brought the concerns out in a way so that we know almost even more what our students are dealing with. And so in some weird way, it's also helped as well as very much hurt. And it's a fascinating thing, but we have the knowledge, we know what's going on. So what are we going to do with it? And I love the way you just put that. And you and I have never had a bad conversation, brother. we just haven't. As much as time has separated. I know we haven't seen each other in at least 5-6 years.
Yeah, that sounds
but
right.
It doesn't matter, man. Right? It's always a pleasure to sit down with you, hear your thoughts. I've always respected the work that you do and the man that you are, and so I cannot thank you enough for coming through the diner, brother.
Whether you realize it or not, I look up to you too, man. Like the books, the speaking tours. You got a lot to be proud of too. And everybody north of the border, well, depending on which location of the U.S. you're at, because some of us are more north than I am. But Canada loves you, man. And next time you're in town, we're gonna go to my favorite diner.
It's on, buddy. It is on. Hopefully we catch a Raptors game too. I love those games.
Sure. We can do that too.
It's always a party there. Love that. Yeah, love that stadium. I love it, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Y'all, that was my time with my man, Signore Perrone, Ercole Perrone. He's a man. He's just such a great dude. I love his insights about things that we talked about today. We talked about mental health, obviously, and being that voice and letting other individuals, giving them the space to talk and make sure, how are we listening? What does the empathy look like in the work that we are doing? Same thing with the DEI work. And I just love the way that he put a lot of the matters, because a lot of it came down to the fact that through being a little bit more seasoned, having a little bit more experience, he learned to ask questions before jumping in, right? He learned that the fact that, learning is harder than assuming, but it's work worth doing, whether it's in the DEI space, the mental health space, the mentoring space. And that's something that we're about here in the diner, y'all. So I appreciate you all coming through. And until next time, do me a favor, keep punching small talk in the face by asking better questions.